The night had settled over Clara's house like a heavy, quiet blanket, and she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her mind a restless swirl of thoughts, wondering why the silence felt so loud, why the emptiness of the house made her chest ache in ways she couldn't quite name, and she thought about her husband, away on another business trip, about the routine of his absence and how it made the house feel colder, lonelier, though she had always prided herself on keeping things cheerful for Liam, her 10-year-old son, who now slept in the room down the hall, or at least she thought he did, until a faint creak of the floorboards reached her ears and made her heart skip a beat, because it sounded deliberate, hesitant, yet somehow certain, and she found herself holding her breath as the door to her bedroom opened just slightly and a small shadow slipped inside. And for a moment she thought it might be a dream, an echo of the strange loneliness that had been following her lately. But then, she saw Liam's wide eyes full of both fear and determination, and she realized he had come to her room for a reason, though she didn't yet know what, and he whispered her name almost too softly to hear. "Mom, can I talk to you?" And the sound of his voice, trembling as it did, tightened something deep in her chest, a mix of surprise, concern, and a sudden warmth at the thought that he had noticed, that he cared enough to wake her, to find her even in the dark quiet of the house, and she sat up slowly, pulling the blanket around her, trying to appear calm and welcoming, though her mind raced with possibilities, wondering if he had a problem, if something had happened at school, if he needed advice, or simply wanted to feel close to her. And she watched as he moved to the edge of the bed, small hands fidgeting, trying to find courage in the silence, and she noticed the way his shoulders tensed and relaxed, the slight trembling of his lips, and she felt an ache for him, for the vulnerability he was showing, for the innocence that still lingered, though she knew he was growing, changing in ways she hadn't fully noticed before, and she tried to give him a gentle smile to reassure him, to tell him silently that it was okay to speak, that she was here, that she would listen, and Liam took a deep breath, his little chest rising and falling as if he were trying to gather the courage for words he had been holding inside for hours, maybe even days, and then he spoke softly, carefully. I know you're lonely without Dad." And Clara felt a sudden jolt in her heart, not from shock but from the awareness that he had noticed, that he had seen the quiet moments, the sadness she tried to hide, and she felt tears threatening to spill, a mix of gratitude and sorrow, and she reached out instinctively, placing her hand over his, feeling the small warmth, the pulse of life, the heartbeat of someone who loved her and wanted to understand her in a way that only a child could, and she realized how much he had grown, how aware he was becoming of the world of emotions, of the quiet needs of those around him, and yet he was still just a child, standing on the threshold of understanding, trying to make sense of feelings bigger than he could name, bigger than anyone could explain, and she wanted to hold him, to tell him it was all right, that she was fine, that his concern mattered, that love was enough, and she watched him as he shifted slightly, gaze dropping to the floor, and whispered, "I just wanted to see if you were okay." And the simplicity of the word struck her, how profound it was that a small voice could carry such weight, such tenderness, such empathy, and she felt the walls of the room, the boundaries between parent and child, blur in a moment of pure human connection, a moment of trust, of unspoken understanding, and she squeezed his hand lightly, wanting him to know that she understood, that she saw him, that she loved him for caring so deeply, and he looked up then, eyes shining with the flicker of hope, the quiet desire to comfort someone he loved, and she felt a swell of pride and affection that mingled with the sadness of missing her husband, the longing for companionship, and the ache of realizing that life sometimes leaves you in quiet rooms, in nights too still, with hearts seeking comfort in unexpected places, and she thought of how quickly time moved, how fleeting these moments were, how in a blink he would grow further, leaving her behind in stages she hadn't even noticed, and she wanted to savor the moment, to memorize the curve of his small hand, the hesitant smile that broke through his nerves, the soft murmur of concern that reached her ears and heart alike, and Liam, encouraged by her presence, continued a little stronger now, "I couldn't sleep thinking about you alone." And Clara felt her chest tighten further, the depth of emotion washing over her in waves, waves of love, of worry, of recognition that even in the quietest, darkest hours, the bonds between them were alive, fierce and tender all at once, and she realized then that this night, this small intrusion into her sleep, this whispered conversation in the half-light of the room, was not just a child seeking comfort, but a child offering it in return, offering a bridge between loneliness and understanding, A reminder that family was not just shared by blood but by the care that coursed quietly beneath the surface of everyday life. And as she held his hand, feeling the small, steady pulse of life, feeling the unspoken promise of protection and support, she whispered back, her voice soft but certain, "I'm okay, Liam, and I'm so proud of you for caring." And for a moment, the room seemed to breathe along with them, the darkness softened, the silence filled with the rhythm of heartbeats and quiet reassurance. And though neither of them fully understood the weight of the moment, the significance of the tender exchange, they both felt it deeply, a connection that words alone could not contain. And Clara knew, as she tucked the blanket lightly around him and offered a reassuring smile, that this night, this quiet visit, would remain in her memory forever, a testament to the fragile, resilient, and beautiful nature of love, of trust, and of the moments that define a family, even when the world outside sleeps unaware of the bonds quietly strengthening in the shadows. And as Liam finally stepped back toward his own room, turning to give her a small nod of reassurance, Clara felt a strange mix of relief and longing, a knowledge that the night had given them something rare and precious, a moment of unspoken understanding, a night where love quietly revealed itself in the simple act of a child walking softly into his mother's room to make sure she was okay. And as the door closed gently behind him, the sound echoing in the silent house, Clara lay back down, heart full, mind racing, and the house, though still quiet, felt warmer somehow, as if the simple act of caring had lit a small, lasting fire in the spaces between the walls. And she knew that the memory of this night, of the whispered words and the soft presence, would stay with her always, a reminder that even in the darkest hours, even in the loneliest moments, love finds its way, delicate and unassuming, yet powerful enough to heal, to bind, and to illuminate the hearts of those brave enough to seek it and wise enough to recognize it. And as sleep finally edged its way into her weary mind, Clara whispered a silent thanks for the unexpected comfort, the quiet courage of a small child, and the profound reminder that family, at its heart, is built in moments like this, fragile yet enduring, fleeting yet unforgettable. And she drifted into dreams with a smile, knowing that tonight had given her more than rest. It had given her connection, love, and the kind of quiet magic that only comes when someone shows up, truly holy, with a heart open and unafraid. The morning sun barely crept through the thin curtains when Clara awoke, the memory of the previous night lingering like a gentle echo in her mind, and she found herself thinking about Liam, his small hand in hers, the courage it had taken for him to speak, the vulnerability he had shown, and she wondered what had pushed him to come to her so quietly, what thoughts had kept him awake while the rest of the house slumbered. And as she moved to the kitchen to make a cup of tea, the warmth of the mug in her hands grounding her, she recalled the subtle tension in his eyes, the mixture of worry and determination, and she realized that in his own way, he had been offering her comfort even as he sought it, a delicate balance of giving and needing, of affection and understanding, and the thought made her heart swell, an ache of love and pride that only parents could feel, and she wondered if she had truly been listening, if she had been present enough in the moments he needed her most. And while the kettle hissed softly, she heard the creak of the floor again, the small, familiar rhythm that told her Liam had come down quietly, trying not to disturb the morning. And when he stepped into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes, looking half asleep but fully earnest, Clara felt a wave of tenderness wash over her, realizing that these ordinary moments carried extraordinary weight, the kind that shapes the bond between parent and child. And Liam, noticing her gaze, offered a small shy smile that seemed to carry a mixture of apology and pride, as if he knew he had crossed some invisible threshold of maturity. And Clara returned the smile with all the warmth she could muster, wanting to reassure him, to let him know that his presence, his concern mattered, that the bond they shared had just grown stronger. And she said softly, "Good morning, Liam. Did you sleep well?" And he nodded, hesitating before speaking, words carefully chosen, as if each one carried significance beyond his years. "I couldn't stop thinking about last night. I just wanted to make sure you weren't lonely, that you were okay." Clara felt a lump rise in her throat, a mixture of emotion she struggled to name, love and sorrow, pride and longing, all intertwined in a delicate knot, and she moved closer, sitting at the table opposite him, noticing how much he had grown recently, how his expressions carried more depth, how the quiet observation of the world around him revealed wisdom beyond his age. And she asked gently, "What made you think to come to me?" And Liam fidgeted with the edge of his shirt, eyes dropping to the floor for a brief moment before meeting hers again, earnest and open. I've noticed things, Mom. When Dad is away, the house feels quiet, and I thought maybe you were sad or lonely and I didn't know how else to help. Clara's chest tightened, her heart aching with a mix of gratitude and tenderness, realizing that her son had sensed her emotions, had stepped into her world in a way that transcended mere words, and she reached across the table, placing her hand over his, feeling the small warmth, the heartbeat, the steady rhythm of someone who cared deeply, and Liam's fingers closed around hers briefly, a silent acknowledgement of shared understanding, of connection, of the unspoken truth that family is not just about shared spaces but about noticing, responding, and caring for one another in moments both small and significant. And as they sat together in the soft morning light, Clara reflected on the nights she had spent feeling isolated, missing her husband, worrying about her son, and realizing that sometimes, love arrives in subtle, unexpected ways, and that the quiet courage of a child can illuminate the darkest corners of adult loneliness. And Liam, encouraged by her presence, continued to speak slowly, carefully, his words carrying the weight of his observation and his heart. I know you try to be strong, but I just want you to know that I see you, that I notice when you're tired or sad, and it matters to me because you matter to me, Mom. And Clara felt tears prick at her eyes, a mix of overwhelming emotion and relief, the kind that comes when someone finally recognizes your struggles and offers compassion without judgment. And she squeezed his hand gently, whispering, "Thank you, Liam. That means more than you know." And he smiled, the shy, radiant smile of a child discovering the power of empathy, of emotional connection, and the room seemed to breathe along with them, filled with a warmth that neither sunlight nor heat could provide, a warmth built of trust, love, and the courage to express feelings that often go unspoken. And Clara reflected on how fast Liam was growing, how quickly he was learning, how he was beginning to understand the complexities of life, of emotions, of relationships, and she marveled at the quiet, subtle ways he had matured, noticing her loneliness and responding with care, a small but profound act that revealed the depth of his character. And as they shared breakfast together, simple food but rich in emotion, the unspoken acknowledgement lingered in the space between them, a bridge connecting two hearts across age, experience, and understanding. And Clara felt the kind of deep satisfaction that comes from recognizing the growth of someone you love, the blossoming of empathy and courage in a child who had not only learned to observe but to act, to reach out, to comfort. And she realized how rare and precious these moments were, how quickly they could be lost in the rush of everyday life, and she wanted to savor each detail. The way Liam's eyes brightened when he spoke, the slight tremor in his voice when he expressed his concern, the gentle way he sought to reassure her as much as she sought to reassure him. And Liam, sensing her emotion, continued, a little bolder now, a little more confident. I hate seeing you alone like that. I wanted to do something, even if it's small, just to let you know you're not alone." And Clara felt her heart swell, understanding that sometimes the most meaningful gestures come not from grand actions, but from quiet, thoughtful acts of love, from noticing, from presence, from the courage to speak what one feels, even when it is difficult. And she realized that last night's visit had been more than a simple conversation. It had been a profound connection, a teaching moment for both of them, showing her that her son was becoming more than just a child. He was growing into someone aware, compassionate, emotionally intelligent, and she wanted to nurture that in him, to guide him, to ensure he knew that expressing care was a strength, not a burden. And as they cleared the breakfast dishes together, the light of morning filling the kitchen, she noticed the subtle changes in his posture, the way he held himself with a quiet confidence, the small but significant gestures that revealed his growing understanding of the world. And she felt a surge of hope, a belief that the bond between them would continue to deepen, that their relationship had been transformed in small but profound ways by a simple act of concern, a whisper in the dark, a quiet step into a room. And she thought about the future, about the many moments yet to come, and how this night, this conversation would remain a touchstone for both of them, a reminder of love's quiet power, of courage, of empathy, of the ways human hearts connect in the smallest yet most meaningful of acts. And as Liam left the kitchen, heading back to his room with a satisfied, almost shy smile, Clara felt a gentle, enduring warmth in her chest, a sense of peace, a knowledge that this connection, this understanding, this shared moment of vulnerability and care, had created a foundation stronger than any words, stronger than distance, stronger than the quiet ache of an empty house. And she knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, no matter how lonely nights might feel, the bond between her and her son had grown resilient, tender, and profound, a living testament to the power of noticing, of caring, of speaking from the heart. And as she stood at the window watching the sun rise, Clara whispered a quiet prayer of thanks for the child who had shown her so much about love, empathy, and the quiet courage it takes to reach out, and she smiled, knowing that life, with all its challenges, could still hold moments of magic, moments that heal, connect, and remind us that even in the silence of a house, the love between parent and child can speak louder than any words, brighter than any light, and that the simplest gestures, the small footsteps, the whispered concern, the reaching out of a hand, can become memories that last a lifetime, shaping hearts, building trust, and teaching lessons far beyond what either of them could have imagined. And as the day unfolded, Clara carried the warmth of that quiet morning with her, knowing that the connection she had felt, the unspoken understanding, the emotional bridge built by her son's gentle courage, would continue to guide her. Calm. The next evening arrived with a soft, golden glow spilling into Clara's room, and she felt the quiet anticipation lingering from the day before. The memory of Liam's courage, his small hand in hers, and the tender conversation that had bridged the gap between parent and child. And though the house was calm, she sensed a subtle shift, a feeling that something more awaited, something that would complete the emotional circle that had begun with whispered words in the dark. And as she walked past the hallway toward her bedroom, she noticed a small envelope lying neatly on the bedside table, its edges slightly bent as if handled with care. And she picked it up, curiosity piqued, heart thumping in a mix of excitement and nervousness, and when she opened it, she found a handwritten note, each word carefully chosen, written in Liam's small, deliberate handwriting, conveying thoughts that were too big for his age yet too honest to ignore. A note that spoke not just of concern for her but of admiration, love, and recognition of all she had done to hold the family together. And Clara felt a wave of emotion that was almost overwhelming, tears pooling in her eyes as she read phrases that expressed gratitude for late-night stories, for quiet encouragement, for the warmth she always offered even when exhausted. And the note continued, reflecting how he noticed the small sacrifices, the invisible struggles, the moments when she smiled to hide sadness, and Clara's chest tightened as she realized that her son, in his own way, had become a silent observer of her heart, understanding more than she had expected, caring more than he needed to, and offering her an unspoken reassurance that love and attention were never unnoticed. And as she folded the note carefully, she felt the weight of its meaning, the depth of connection that had grown between them over days, weeks, months, culminating in a single simple act of writing that carried the strength of a lifetime of emotions. And she thought back to the night he had come into her room, the timid steps, the soft voice, and the courage it had taken to cross the threshold. And she realized that those moments were not just memories but markers of growth, of empathy, of a young soul learning the beauty of emotional intelligence. And Clara felt a swell of pride, a deep, encompassing pride for the child she had raised, the person he was becoming, and the bond that had been forged in the quietest hours, a bond that transcended words, a bond built on observation, understanding, and the courage to reach out when most would remain silent. And she set the note down and looked around the room, noticing how the light caught familiar objects, casting gentle shadows, creating a feeling of intimacy, as if the house itself recognized the significance of the moment. And she thought about the future, about the challenges that life would bring, and felt confident that no matter what obstacles arose, the connection between her and Liam would remain a guiding light, a source of comfort and courage. And she reflected on the lessons learned through this simple act of concern, how the vulnerability he had shown mirrored the vulnerability she sometimes hid, and how their hearts had met halfway in an unspoken agreement of love, respect, and trust. And as she moved to her desk to put the note safely away, she noticed a faint sketch at the bottom, a small heart drawn with care, and it made her smile, a mixture of amusement and deep affection, realizing that even in small gestures, love expressed itself, teaching profound lessons in ways that grand declarations never could. And as the evening deepened into night, she thought about the ways human hearts connect, about the intricate dance of giving and receiving, noticing and responding, and how a single act of empathy could ripple across a family, creating waves of understanding, trust, and emotional intimacy. And Clara, holding the note to her chest, felt a warmth that was both comforting and empowering, a quiet strength that reminded her of the resilience of family bonds, the subtle ways that love nurtures and heals, and the importance of recognizing and cherishing those moments, however small they may seem. And she thought about the laughter they shared during breakfast, the shy smiles, the quiet conversations, the unspoken gestures that filled the spaces between words with meaning, and she realized that these were the threads that wove the fabric of a strong, enduring relationship, a relationship that could withstand distance, absence, and time because it was grounded in empathy, understanding, and authentic connection. And as she placed the note carefully in a drawer, she resolved to respond, not in grand gestures but in simple, heartfelt ways that honored the love, attention, and courage her son had shown, promising herself to spend more moments truly listening, truly observing, truly connecting, and she knew that these small choices would continue to shape their lives, guiding Liam's growth while reinforcing the trust and love between them. And later, when Liam tiptoed into her room again, holding a small cup of cocoa he had prepared himself, a simple act of care that made her eyes well with tears once more, she realized that the chain of kindness, observation, and emotional courage was now mutual, a living cycle of giving and receiving. And as they sipped the warm drink together, their conversation flowed easily, softly, filled with questions, laughter, reflections, and silent acknowledgments of the bond they shared. And Clara felt the weight of time and life's complexities momentarily lift, replaced with the pure, unassuming joy of connection, of seeing the growth of someone she loved deeply, and of being seen in return. The note, the visit, the cocoa, all small yet profound reminders of what family truly means, that love is noticed, appreciated, and returned in ways both subtle and significant. And as the night deepened, Clara tucked Liam into bed once more, his small hand reaching for hers, and she held it for a moment longer, feeling the pulse of life, the trust, the love, the courage, and the unspoken promise that they would continue to support each other, no matter the challenges. And as she watched him drift to sleep, she whispered a quiet prayer of gratitude, a recognition of the lessons learned, the growth achieved, and the beautiful, resilient connection that had formed from simple acts of noticing, caring, and expressing love. And she knew that this night, like the previous one, would remain etched in her memory, a testament to the enduring, quiet power of empathy, compassion, and heartfelt communication. And as she finally settled into her own bed, Clara felt a profound sense of peace, warmth, and hope, a knowledge that life, even in its quietest, most ordinary moments, holds extraordinary opportunities for love, connection, and understanding, and that the bravery of a small heart can illuminate the world in ways the largest gestures cannot. And she drifted into sleep with a heart full of gratitude, eyes wet with quiet tears, a gentle smile on her lips, knowing that she and Liam had created something lasting, beautiful, and unbreakable, a bond of love, trust, and emotional intimacy that would guide them through the days, months, and years to come, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, the simplest acts of care and courage can light a path to understanding, to growth, to family, and to the deepest kind of love that changes lives quietly, profoundly, and forever. Fort her, and fill her life with a gentle, enduring love that words alone could never fully capture.